Okay, everybody, thank y'all so much for joining us for another episode. I know you are shocked to hear my voice right now because Milena is usually the one that heads everything up because she is the one that is our captain and heads the ship for us because she is amazing. But we do have a special guest tonight, and I actually know him. He's my friend, and he is a friend from I'll just go ahead and throw it out there, from Alabama when I lived there. And he has an amazingly unique story for what he went through with his youngest son. And I don't want to give away too much, but it is definitely a different perspective with a biological dad. And his name is Donald, and he has so graciously joined us tonight to share his story. So Donald, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you.
Wait, really quick. I just want to say that I'm super pumped. I'm going to cut him off. Sorry. Because like birth dads don't ever, like, you rarely hear about it. I guess people maybe just don't ask, but I'm like super excited about this. And I think this is going to be a hot episode. Well, so you better buckle up because you guys, I'm so excited to hear from him. I'm so excited to hear from him. Okay. Sorry.
And I'm so sorry. I'm going to go ahead and throw this in there too, to piggyback off that. We do not hear this side enough at all. So that is another reason why this is so important. And I'm so glad that it popped in my head that he actually told me the story before, and I cannot wait to hear this again. So, okay, now it is your turn. Go ahead. Go. We'll stop.
Okay. Yeah. So, I can start it all the way from the beginning. So it started, it was on a Friday morning. I just got off of work, off a night shift, and I probably napped for a couple hours, maybe got up around, I'd say maybe 11:30 in the afternoon, or still in the morning, but got up and had a text message from the girl that I was previously dating, the mother of my youngest son. She texted me and asked me if I talked to her, and I said no, I haven't heard from her in probably about 2 weeks or whatever, because pretty much during this time frame, her and I didn't really talk a lot. I would message to see how my youngest son was, if he wasn't born yet. So I was just trying to see how the doctor visits and everything else were. And she just said, okay, well, just contact her, find out what's going on. I was like, do you know something I don't know? She said, just contact her. So I tried to call her, text her, things like that, with no response. So I finally texted her sister back and just asked her, I was like, what's going on? And she told me at that time that her sister told her that she wound up losing my youngest son while she was 37 weeks pregnant, ready to have the baby at any moment. So I was like, okay, this kind of sounds a little weird, but at that time I didn't know anything different. So I kind of started to feel bad because I had no clue. I'm living in Alabama. She was in Houston, Texas at that moment. So I had no clue what was going on. So I waited around and I was trying to get more information out of her sister, and she would give me like little bits of pieces of information. And so I finally I think it was about 3:00 that afternoon, I just said, forget it. I'm going to go to drive to Houston and just kind of find out where she's at to see, try to be there at that time, be there for the grieving process, since, I'm under the impression that she lost our child. So I texted her sister. I told her, I was like, hey, look, I'm on my way. 5 minutes into texting her and saying that, that's when the mother texted me and said, you're not needed here. I said, well, no, I am needed here because I was just told that you lost the baby. And she, I can't remember what exactly she said at that point, but I told her, well, I'm on my way to Houston anyway to meet with you and, be at the hospital or whatever. And she told me, good luck. So I'm like, oh. And she, obviously it was a crappy way how she put it in a text message. So I was like, okay. I drove to Houston. At this point, I'm emotional because I'm thinking, my son I haven't met yet, didn't really know much about doctor visit, things like that he was deceased. So I had that 7.5 hour drive to kind of think about that. And it was a rough drive. And the closer I got, I think it was around Beaumont, Texas. I was probably about that time, maybe 25, 30 minutes from Houston. and her friends text me. There was 2 friends of hers that text me that I've known or knew about previously before meeting them. And both of them had a group text saying, we're sorry for your loss. If there's anything you can do, just let us know. One of them was, telling me that the hospital does arrangements if there's, just funeral stuff, just telling me stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So at that time, I'm like, all right, I need to talk to her. So I called her and I was talking to her about it. She, obviously she was told the same thing that her sister was, the mother of the child's sister was told about. Yes, the baby was deceased. She wasn't giving out any more information other than she was in the hospital. They didn't know what hospital it was. They couldn't really find out by calling around because of the HIPAA laws. You can't find out anything because of the privacy. And I even tried to do the same thing, and they wouldn't tell me. And I even told them, hey, I am the father. And they just said, well, we still can't give out any type of information. At that point, so I talked to the one girl, and that's the information she gave me. Well, shortly after that, girlfriend was, she told me exactly where she was at. She's like, oh, she's at this hospital, which was, I think it's Saint something in Houston. I can't even remember what it is now. And, I was like, and I called them, told them, hey, look, I'm going to go straight to the hospital. They told me this is where she's at. I get there, and this is probably about 10, 11 o'clock at night, something like that. And they told me, oh, we don't have nobody here by that name. I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait because I was told she was here. So I waited maybe about 5 hours before I finally said, okay, I need to go to my aunt and uncle's house, get a shower, maybe nap a little bit, because I didn't have no sleep. I mean, I'm pretty much running off a couple hours of sleep at that point. And it was by then, it was when I finally asked them the last time around 5 o'clock that following morning, they were like, oh, well, still nobody here. So I went to my aunt's house and got a shower, maybe took about an hour nap. Couldn't really nap because I'm still kind of in that emotional state of thinking that, my child is deceased. And so I got with my aunt when I finally kind of slightly maybe had a 20-minute nap. Got with my aunt. I was talking to them, my uncle, my family there. We were talking, and my aunt decided to go with me. And on the way there, we talked about it. They're obviously upset, just like I am. And I was telling them where we were going. It was, like I said, I think St. John's or St. something. Anyway, she knew of the hospital because when she was younger, she had my nephew or my cousin at a young age, and that's where she went. And they were known for adoptions, having them trying to talk younger people into giving up children for adoption, And so when my aunt told me that, I was like, wow, that's kind of weird, but I'm still slightly in an emotional state. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this makes a little bit more sense because to me, you don't see a lot of stories about a child at 37 weeks or a woman at 37 weeks losing the child right before, her due date's within that range. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. So we go back to the hospital. Same thing, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. And they're like, no, this person's not here. They looked in the system, still not here. So we're just confused. And my aunt wound up asking the lady at the front desk if, because there you can't get the I guess paternity ward or whatever is on the second floor, and you can't go past the lobby if you're not, having a child or if you're a part of, the family that they allow back there. So you have to stay on the first floor. So that's where we were. And my aunt asked one of the ladies if we could speak to a supervisor because we were telling the situation, that I was told my son was deceased. I'm just trying to be here for moral support for not only her, but also to be able to see my child before we, in my mind, have to put him to rest somewhere. So at that point, I guess they thought we were being like disgruntled because we wasn't getting the information. So they had the head security lady come and talk to us. And, I just told him, I was like, look, I've come from Alabama. I drove 7.5 hours to be here, and this is what I was told. And she kind of looked around because they already knew from when I was there the morning before. She kind of looked around. She's like, look, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but she is here. I can tell you that. She's like, I'm not supposed to tell you that, but I can tell you she is here and that she is in labor right now and will have your son, probably within the next few hours or so. And I'm like, what? I was like, well, I just want to know, is he deceased or is he alive? She said, he's alive. And that right now, she is up there, but also the family that plans on adopting him is in there with her. So that's when I found out that she wasn't under her name. She was under their name because they were taking him home, paying the doctor bills. And so I had no clue what their name was. I had any clue about this whatsoever. So at that point, she told us that and she walked away. Well, she wound up contacting what they call the supervising nurse, and she came and talked to me. Well, she wouldn't tell me much of nothing. She was like, yeah, we can't tell you nothing. The way she explained it to me and to my aunt, it made it slightly seem like she said, yes, she was there without coming out and saying it. And all she could really tell me was, well, what you need to do right now is to go ahead and get a lawyer today. Now, granted, this is a Saturday. You need to get a lawyer today to stop any type of process that's going on right now. And I'm just, at that time, I'm baffled because I'm like, well, you're telling me that something's going on. And she was like, no, I'm just telling you, you need to get a lawyer, contact the hospital. Here's my information. Here's the hospital's information. Tell them that you want a DNA test. And I'm like, well, yeah, obviously you're telling me that the baby's alive. She's like, I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you what to do. So instantly we got on the phone while we were still at the hospital, trying to find a lawyer to try to get legal process going, which finally that day, it probably took us about 2 hours to find a lawyer that would answer on a Saturday. And we started getting, the information to them, telling them what was going on. And, she said Monday morning she'd start the process. So there was nothing I could do until Monday morning when she called me to let me know, what was going on or what she found out or anything like that. But my family, they own a business there. So I wound up, instead of staying at the house by myself, because I'm still kind of like baffled by what was going on. So I went to their shop, and when I got there, my aunt was already doing research on what we needed to do, things like that. And that's where, when I got there, she told me about the paternity registry that the states have. And she made me sit there and fill it out. And basically what that is any potential father who believes that their girlfriend or one night stand or whatever is, has a kid, they can fill this out, and it goes to the state, and the state has to tell you the deceased. They knew basically that he was. So with that, we got it put in. We had it overnighted to, I think at that time it was Austin, Texas for them. And so we had it overnighted, and we waited for them response. And that process, in that time frame, I was getting with a lawyer, trying to figure out what we needed to do. And everything we did had to be by the book. We couldn't just go and tell them or tell a judge that, hey, we know the child's process through the court system. system, as in well, she never responded to any of the papers, things like that. After she got served, I think they said she had like 2 weeks to respond before we can get ready for a court hearing. So 2 weeks went by. Then my lawyer called me, and this time, luckily enough, the company I worked for, they give fathers 4 weeks of paternity leave. So I went ahead instantly and took my paternity leave because I had to stay there to, give all the information to the lawyer, do the things I need to do to start the process of going to court, and having to get a judge to sign off on giving me the orders to be able to do a paternity test to make sure that he was my child, and also to give the lawyer the okay to look at any type of documents to make sure that he was deceased. And then this whole process, I'm still trying to not let nobody know, having to keep it quiet because I didn't want her to know that I knew the secret. And so I didn't even tell any of my family until later on, after everything was done or started the process, and we got a court order to be able to do a paternity test. And then once we got that, still at this time we had no clue where he was or anything like that. This was around, so he was born in August, so I had a court in September, and the one in October was the one that gave me the judgment for a paternity test. And once I got that, I went ahead and set up everything and took my DNA test, and we were already had that on file, and we were waiting to find out where he was. Well, I wound up staying a couple extra days in Texas because I planned on leaving prior to, and then I was like, no, I'll stay a couple more days, and I stayed. But when I got back home, I wound up having a expedited letter in the mail from an adoption agency stating that, hey, we understand that you put in a paternity registry with the state. They've contacted us about a baby boy with the last name, and obviously the last name is under hers, but they let me know that. And so I was like ecstatic at that point because now I got proof that he was adopted out, which helped me because once I got the letter, I was able to give it to my lawyer, and we were able to get them served, the adopted family served with papers stating, I got a judgment for a paternity test. Still at this time, don't know nothing. So in the letter, it stated it wanted me to contact him, and I was like, okay, no problem. But first, I contacted my lawyer. She said not to talk to him until she was able to talk to him. I said, okay, no problem. So I waited and waited and waited, and I'm an anxious person, so I hate waiting. So at that point, because I wanted answers, I went ahead and called, and obviously they answered for me. So I know they were getting the phone calls from my lawyer at that point. So they answered the phone and was asking me a bunch of stuff like, I'm trying to think what all they asked. She asked several things. She got me frustrated with some of the stuff that they were asking because it wound up trying to get personal because I have an older son with my ex-wife, and her and I get along great. We have no issues with each other. Joint custody, no problems there. Everything's been great between her and I. But apparently the mother of my youngest son, she tried to paint me as like some type of villain, some bad parent, bad dad. And she was telling them that while her and I were dating, I was still married to my ex-wife. Well, like I told the lady, I said, there's no way, because I've been divorced for 6 years. So no, that's not true. And then when I debunked that from her questions, she went in to say that, well, the mother said that you don't have custody of your child, your oldest son. I said, no, that's not true. I have custody of him. Not only do I have custody of him, we have joint custody, which I'm totally fine with. I said, there's no bad blood or anything between her and I. Everything's great. So she's like, okay, I could tell that it was frustrating her that I was answering the questions not in the ways that she wanted. And she just kept trying to dig in. And this is, like I said, the adoption agency supervisor, whatever she was, over the case. And then she went on and said that, well, the mother said that she was with multiple people and she doesn't know who the father was, but she was quite certain that you weren't the father. It had to be this other guy. And she said some name. I couldn't even tell you who the other name was. But even then she was still saying like 3 other names. I said, lady, that could be the possibility. I don't know. I live in Alabama. She lives in Texas. I have no clue. I mean, that could easily be the possibility, but as of right now, I'm not certain of it. The timeline shows that I'm the father. I said, granted, I could not be, but I'm trying to find out. I said, this is what was told to me, that, my son was deceased. This whole time I'm under the impression that he's my son. I said, I paid for doctor visits in the beginning when her and I were on good terms. Been to ultrasounds at that point in the beginning. And she just kept on trying to nitpick things. So I got mad and I told her, I was like, look, I see what you're trying to do and it's not going to work. What you need to do is give me about 10 minutes and I'll have my lawyer call you and you can talk to her because I'm done with this conversation. And I hung up with her and I was like, this lady, trust me, I know lady is not the type of person I want to be talking to, especially with her trying to, get me mad and riled up and saying, all these like false statements that the mother of my child was saying that were true that were not. And so at that point, my lawyer got with her and told her, hey, we have an order. So you need to contact the adopted family and let them know that we have an order for paternity tests. They need to take them to a certain place, and which they did the first time. And so the way it was done, it was supposed to take, once his DNA was done, it was supposed to take like 3 days to get it back. And in those 3 days, I never got results. So I called them and talked to them, and they were like, oh, well, we haven't got his DNA. And I was like, okay, well, let me call the place that we had it done. So I called them, talked to them, and they were like, no, we sent it off. Matter of fact, we sent it off like that same day. They came early in the morning. We were able to ship it off that afternoon. So it should be there. Well, in that process, needless to say, we had to, the first DNA test they didn't get of his. The second one, they got there and they expedited the results back. So when I talked to them, they said it'll take about maybe a day and a half to 2 days process to get results and everything else that went with it. And sure enough, it was like we tracked everything that showed what it shipped to them, and they received it. And it was about a day later, late in the afternoon, about 5 o'clock. I'm at work, and I get the email from the DNA center, and I was like, oh crap, here it is. So I'm over here getting anxious, thinking, what is it going to be? How am I going to feel if he's not mine? And how am I going to feel if he is mine, knowing that this whole time, she told me that he was deceased. And so it was a big bunch of emotion at that point too. And so I opened it up, And if you see some of it at first, it's a bunch of gibberish, and then at the bottom of it, it has like a statement, like a small comment section about a paragraph long, stating, hey, based off of our results, out of white males in the U.S. with their DNA, your match was 99.9997%. So instantly, I kind of started crying because now I know and I have confirmed that, yes, this is my child. And so instantly, I called my lawyer, told her, hey, look, it came in. I'm emailing you this right now. And she was ecstatic because that was pretty much what we were waiting for to kind of start, another legal process. So we got excited when we found out the results. Well, shortly after, probably about 2 days after we got the results, and I shared it with my lawyer, and I'm certain that the lawyer shared it with the adoption agency. My lawyer contacted me and said, all right, now we have a new problem. The family wants to adopt him out. And at that time, they were getting closer to the time frame to where I think it's 6 months. You have 6 months before you can fully adopt a child out. So we were getting close. We were around December time at that point. So our late November at that point, getting ready. And February would have been their 6-month mark to where they can just fully outright adopt him. And then once they did that, that's another legal case I would have had to done to try to get my rights. But so they were trying to countersue, saying, I forgot what their lawyer was trying to say. So needless to say, we already had another court date because we got the paternity registry back. And this was like somewhere mid-December. We had a court case. The adopted family was there, and magically the mother of the child wound up being there too in the corner of the adopted family. So I'm thinking, these people are just evil. I don't know what she's been telling them or what the case may be, because we can't have contact with each other type deal. So that court date wound up getting postponed to a later date. I think it was going to be in January, and we would have had to do just a normal court date to get a trial for the case. And instead of doing that, because it was close to Christmas time, the judge wound up ordering us to do mediation before we had to, get a court case for the trial. And what mediation is just basically you're in a mutual leveling ground at a lawyer's office. Everybody's in a different room. And so I was in one room with my lawyer. They were in one room with their lawyer, and the adoption agency had their lawyer there. And also in that time frame, the mother of the child wound up being summoned there too. And we had a lady, she started with me. I told her, everything that was going on. I showed her the, my documents of where I paid for doctor visits. I had printouts of that, my bank statements to where, I sent her money for paternity clothes and things like that. I showed them text messages from where she was telling me that, yes, that you are the father, things like that, just telling me small things. We came up with his name that he is currently named now, Luke. I came up with the name and she just agreed with it. So obviously, since I came up with it, being a guy, I kept it. And just kind of that little poke at the end. But yeah, so we had our mediation, and it probably took, we got there early that morning. It's probably about 8 o'clock that morning. We got there, and we wound up not leaving. I had to cancel a flight because of it. We wound up not leaving until about 5 o'clock that evening, and it wasn't because things were going bad. It was just trying to get the information out. The mediators having to jump from room to room to room to find out everybody's information and what's going on. And I had a binder that I made, and I just started printing out everything. The binder had to be at least 3 inches thick of all the proof that I had. And luckily enough, I kept all that because that day it wound up helping me, and ultimately helping with the results I have today with having full custody of my son, with no shared custody with her at all. And so the mediator came in, told us, what the other lawyers were saying, and the mediator met with the mother of my son, and she said, you know what, she doesn't even need to be here. She wants to give up her rights right now, and so we're done with her. The mediator wanted her nothing to do with it. She had no say so no more. At that point, it was just between me and the adopted family, because they already eliminated the adoption agency out because they had no fight in it. They just wanted to make sure that they were just covered legally if something did go right. If I wanted to sue the adoption agency, or if the adopted family wanted to sue them based off of the misinformation and the lack of investigating that they did, because they never investigated anything. Even with all the names that she named off, they never called anybody and try to find out if any of those fellas wanted to, say that they're the father, or take a DNA test, or if they cared to try to be the father. So in that process, we wound up finding out that shortly after her and I split, or I'm sorry, not even before her and I split, days before her and I split, she already contacted the adoption agency and talked with them and started the process of adoption, me having no clue about this at all. And so they're telling us this is what happened. This is what the adoption agency is telling them, and which is return telling me that the supervisor I spoke with talked to the mom, and she said, yeah, there's no father in the picture, there's this, that, and the other. So apparently a couple days later I had to go. So obviously we were arguing a lot, and you can only take so much, and we wound up splitting the relationship off at that point. But it was interesting to know that 2 days later, after she spoke with the adoption agency, that we split up. So I learned that day. Then we also learned that the adopted family met with her prior to her having the baby. But not only did she meet with her, but she also met, and this is them telling me, so I don't know how all the truth is when it comes to that. This is just what's been said to me, was they met not only with the mother, but also the mother's father of her 2 kids prior to, met with her baby daddy there. So like they were family or something. Like, I guess maybe she tried to portray him as the father or whatever it may be, but it was a big crazy ordeal that they were telling me, and I was baffled. I didn't know what to say. I was looking at my lawyer like, this is like mind-blowing. Like, I'm coming here, I started off thinking that the child was deceased, and now they're telling me that before her and I split up, she was talking to the adoption agency, and then afterwards that she was, the adopted family met with them. I don't have nothing against the adopted family. They had no clue. But we wound up, the adopted family wanted to talk to me. And I told my lawyer I was perfectly fine with that. their lawyer's perfectly fine with that. We all got together in a room. After we ate lunch, we all got together in a room and we spoke to each other, and super nice people. Like I said, prior to this, I've never seen my child. At that time, he was about a little over 4 months old. So I hadn't seen him in this whole process. I think somehow we wound up finding a picture on Facebook when we found out the name of the adopted family. And obviously he looked a lot like me. So instantly I knew, he was mine, because, you can't beat these genetic features here. But so, we sat there and talked. They told me about themselves and who they are, and I told them who I was, and what went on. This was my understanding. They obviously seen the evidence that I had against the mother, stating the lies that she made. They were unaware of the lies. Their lawyer was also unaware of the lies, because at that point, there was no lawyers in the room when we spoke with each other. It was just me, myself, the adopted family, and the mediator. We wanted no lawyers. It was just a one-on-one thing to kind of get to know each other and see how things work, because we wasn't sure how long it was going to take, the process or anything like that. And they told me about themselves. I told them about myself, and I just the main thing I told them, because we were starting to get into deeper conversations about my son, and they showed me pictures, things like that. Hey, you can see where we started a family. We're excited about this, and they're older, not like too older. They're in their 40s, and this was their first actual baby. They've tried a couple times before and had some failed attempts because of either the moms at that time backed out and wound up keeping the baby, or I think one of them wound up losing the baby but didn't say nothing about it and just kept trying to get some perks for being the as I would call it, ovary donor. But so they were telling me their story, and I felt really bad. That's kind of, I'm in the hard place to, knowing their story and how they've been trying for years to adopt a child for them to have and grow as a family. And I'm over here, just me by myself, being a single male, not sure, what to think about this. Like, my heart goes out to them, obviously, at that time, because I didn't know what to do. But like I told them, at the end of the day, he is my child. I'm not one of these fathers that is just going to give up on the child. He's mine. I'm not going to run away from my responsibility. I hate to be like that, knowing their story, but at the same time, they understood that, I'm the father. I didn't want to give him up for adoption. I had no clue he was being put up for adoption. The only things I was being told was like bits and pieces when she was telling me, oh, he's fine, or, whatever it may be in that case. And so I wound up leaving after talking with them. We went back to our separate rooms and got our lawyers back in there. And I was sitting there talking to my lawyer. And this time my uncle's in the other room waiting on me. Like I said, we already had I was trying to speed them up because I had a flight leaving out that day or that evening, trying to come back home so I could come back to work. Because I didn't plan on staying for mediation. That just was sprung on me. So I had to last minute take vacation to get things done as the courts wanted. And once we went back to different rooms, it wasn't but maybe 5 minutes later, my lawyer and I were in process of just talking, random talking. We're kind of just waiting to see what else is next. the mediator comes in, and the mediator comes in with the adoptive family's lawyer. And they sat down with us, and at that point, I'm like, oh man, like, now the lawyer's in here. This is going to be interesting. So the mediator just said, hey, look, I got some good news for you right now, and I'm going to let their lawyer tell you. And it wound up being that the adopted family and the lawyer talked and, decided that they were going to go ahead, and since I proved that the paternity, that he was my child, that they were going to let me take him home instead of drawing the court case out to, for all of us to spend X amount of money in courts, and just drag it out for no point and reason. And so they told me, or the lawyer told me, that yes, we're going to go ahead and let you take your son home, because they knew I had to go home to Alabama for work. We're going to go ahead and let you take your son home tomorrow. Meet at the adoption agency at 11 o'clock. You're taking him home. I said, do I need to stay here? I said, because when I leave here, I'm going, obviously staying with my aunt and uncle at that time, because I had to change my flight to the next day. I said, you do realize I'm going to Alabama? They're like, yes, we understand that. We have no issues with that. He's your son. You do whatever you want with him. And I was like, oh, wow. At that point, I was just kind of in shock. I mean, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. Now I'm in my head at that point, I'm thinking, okay, I'm fixing to have this long legal battle. And I was preparing myself in my head, the process of what I'd have to do, how long it'd take, things like that. And for them to come out and say, yeah, you get to take your son home tomorrow. We want the adopted family to have some time with him to kind of say their goodbyes. And, I obviously started crying at that point, because not only was I excited and happy that I was able to take my son home, but at the same time, I realized that I just, hurt these people, because they were so excited to have him. They gave him, for 4 months, they gave him a great life. He was a happy child. They, like I said, I saw videos and pictures that they showed me, and he looked really happy. So now I'm with other emotions, thinking like, how's he going to react when we come home? Is it going to be, a terrible experience for both of us? Is he going to cry because he misses them? And so needless to say, I didn't get to sleep that night, excited and also, emotional about the situation. And we wound up, my uncle took me to pick him up. And the first thing I heard when we got off the elevator was him crying. I was like, oh Lord, here we are. This is what it's fixing to be like, because they dropped him off and then they had to leave. And obviously he felt like, maybe it was a bad presence. And I'd probably be mad at those people too, because they were not nice while we were there. They were trying to rush us out, and he's sitting there crying. So I picked him up, and I'm trying to, bond with him a little bit, try to get him not to cry, things like that. And they're still sitting there trying to push me out. And then I finally said, you know what, we're good. We'll go ahead and leave. I mean, he's crying, that's fine. We'll go outside and take care of this. And we wound up going downstairs, putting the car seat in, and we got in the vehicle, and I was going to my aunt and uncle's shop to see them before we left, because I still had like 2 hours left before I had a flight coming home. So we went there, and my family got to see them. My Texas family, as I call them, they're my dad's side of the family. They got to see him before anybody else did, and got to give their lovings to him before we hopped on the flight and came back to Alabama. And I was worried about it, because I didn't know how he'd react on a flight. We're in one of the busiest airports in the U.S., and he was very calm and cool. We put him in the car to go to the airport. He fell asleep while we were there. He pretty much was asleep until we got on the flight. And even when we got on the flight, He was fine. I gave him this pacifier just in case, his ears popped or had pressure in his head or anything like that. They say to give him that. So I did that. I did my research for sure to make sure everything was covered before we came home. And even prior to that, I already had baby stuff set up at my house, ready for him. Like I said, because that was at that point I already knew prior to when she told me she was pregnant. I bought stuff for my house because I knew I would need it. And so everything at home was set up. I already knew that was all set up. I wasn't worried about that. It was just mainly getting him there and how he would be on the flight. And he was perfectly fine on the flight. He slept, I think, the last like 10 minutes of the flight. He woke up and he was sitting up looking around, and there was a lady beside us with her dog. And so he was interested over there, like, wow, look at this little creature. And it was a good experience on the flight. And then had to get a rental car because I wasn't able to fly directly into Mobile. So I had to fly into New Orleans, got a rental car, and we drove back. And that whole time there, he fell asleep. So I probably got home about 9:00 that evening, I think, something like that. Well, the next day I had to go to work. So, I mean, I had to. They were making me come to work. Or I was going to get in trouble, possibly fired over the situation, even though they knew, or my shift leader knew, but I guess the rest of the corporate side of it didn't, I guess, understand what was going on. So got home way before we left from Houston. I called my mom, and she wound up meeting me at my house because I left a key. And she was waiting so I could go to work the next day and pretty much work the weekend, because at this time it was a weekend. I think I missed Friday, so I worked Saturday. I worked Saturday because I came home on a Friday. And then I worked that Sunday, and then that Sunday, I wound up calling our HR hotline and telling them, hey, look, I'm going out on FMLA leave for a little while. I said it may be several weeks. I don't know. And I wound up, after that Sunday, I stayed off until, I think it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks. I stayed off of work and got to spend time with him, bond with him, to, let him know that everything's good here. You don't have nothing to worry about. And it was a fairly easy transaction when he came home, or came to Alabama. And when we came back to Alabama, I think we had one more. Everything was almost finalized. They put, the pandemic happened, and they kind of postponed all that. And then eventually, I think May of 2020, they finally gave me, the judge wound up giving me full sole custody of him. And they asked me if I wanted to do child support, things like that. I said no. If she was dumb enough to tell them that she wanted nothing to do with him during mediation, I don't want nothing to do with him, or with her, excuse me, not him, her. And so I don't want her child support. I don't want her to have really any contact with him. And I guess the state of Texas, even though it's not a full out adoption, she basically has no rights, but she has enough to where she can contact me and ask me about him. But it's totally up to me whether I respond to it or anything like that. So that's the only real right she has. She can't say, oh, you have to let me see him or anything like that. And but it was a very long process. It took, like I said, about 4 months, and that was starting in August and wound up ending in December. And even with the pandemic, it wasn't too bad. He wound up still, like I said, even at a young age, he adapted really quick to the new environment with just him and I. And it's been pretty good ever since. Every once in a while, he gets on my nerves, but that's pretty much any kid. But I mean, I guess the main thing is if somebody expects or thinks that, has the same situation like that, just always remember, if you can't find out on your own and you think someone you were with or anything like that there's having a child or told you they were having a child, the best thing to do is do that paternity registry. Every state has it. And basically it is you giving your information, and then you give the mother's information, where she lives, things like that. The information I mean, obviously you're not going to know social security numbers and things like that. But when you do that, that was the major key to how I was able to get my son, because I filled that out, sent it to the state. And when it does that, it kind of bypasses the HIPAA law and lets the state allow whatever information that they have, whether it had been, if he was deceased, they would have gave me a deceased certificate, or in my case, they wound up contacting the adoption agency for them to tell them they had to contact me over the possible paternity father. And so it definitely helped. And I probably couldn't have done it without my aunt. She was a very big part of it. She's the one that found it. She was pretty much there. My uncle was there with me the whole step of the way. But yeah, it was a long, hard, emotional process that wound up turning up very good for me at the end. Obviously he's still around. He's upstairs, probably in bed by now. But yeah, he's 2, working on 3, and we got a long 16 years left, so it's gonna be fun. And so a lot of guys think that the father don't have rights. You do. It's just you have to do it the long legal way, which could be expensive, cannot be expensive. It just depends. In my case, it was expensive because the mother of the child, she didn't want to respond to anything, so it made it worse. It prolonged everything because we had to give her X amount of time to respond, and if she didn't respond to that, then we had to give her the final notice. So it made the process a little bit longer, and courts are not in a rush to do anything. But I did learn a lot of things at that time, because my lawyer wound up telling me I wasn't the only one that was going through that process. There was another gentleman who had the same scenario going on. The mother wouldn't tell him anything, and he knew that was his child. And his problem was, lawyers, he didn't have the money for it. And I don't know whatever came of that, other than I know that she said that there was one other person in this Houston area that was doing the same thing. So yeah, it's pretty much wrapped up the story. It's just like I said, it was a very emotional roller coaster, and thankfully it had a good ending to it. So
No, yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. It honestly sounds like hell. It doesn't sound like anything that
Yeah,
anybody would want to go through.
that was a lot. That was a
you
lot more than I remember him telling me the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah, I don't think I told you the whole story, because it was a long. I mean, obviously it's very long, and I
No, but
it's shortened up a little bit more.
Yeah, but like it's so much, and it's like it is such a roller coaster.
Right.
Like that is so much. Like I do have a quick question for you, more about the paternity registry.
Mm.
How you said every state has it, and my understanding is you register your DNA, is what you said. And then
at that point you don't register your DNA. You just give the basic information to the state saying that, hey, I believe I'm the father of this child. And then the state goes out and reaches out to, in my case, the child was being adopted, so they had to reach out to the adoption agency because they had it on file where he was born, which was crazy because his first name at that time with the adopted family was the same as my oldest son's name. So now I got 2 kids at the same with the same name, just different last names. So it was like crazy.
Yeah.
And I told them about it, and but yeah, you have to fill it out. Like I just said, it's just filling out basic information. You can look it up online. You just put your basic information, name, address, since you're basically saying, hey, when you fill that out, you're saying, hey, I'm a father. I want to take a test to prove that I'm a father. And I guess basically the state has to follow that procedure to at least allow you to be able to take a DNA test for that process.
So essentially, at the end of the day, that needs to be the first step. No,
yes, yeah.
That should be the first step for anybody for any father that wants to ensure that any biological father that wants to ensure that they have their child in their life or some kind of connection, like they need to take that step first.
Yes, yes. That's pretty much like, as soon as you know that she is in the hospital, I think if I remember correctly, it said it gives you like 30 days after the child is born, you have that time frame to fill this paperwork out. After the 30 days, it kind of goes into something different, but we wound up doing it within. Matter of fact, we didn't know, but he was born on a Sunday, and I filled it out on a Monday, and it just wound up doing that process. It took a little longer. They said it took a little longer because they were having trouble with their system at that time. So, even though I found out in October or the end of October, they said because of the system mess up and things like that, it probably should have been sooner, because that family had no clue that I was looking. They just thought everything's good. They had to wait till February. When February came for them, they were signing full out papers that he belongs to them. And at that point, they wasn't even thinking about a biological father. They were just assuming that nobody wanted to step up, and that was done. No one knew about me. I think they wound up saying my name wasn't even involved in any of it. It was like these 3 other guys or whatever it may have been. She gave them their names but left me out of the whole thing.
Yes.
So yeah, it was.
Sounds like it was
interesting how. Oh yeah,
I was gonna say she sounds like
it was intentional.
Yeah.
So
definitely intentional.
Yeah, with the adoption agency, like, did they because kind of what you were saying, they just kind of scooched on out of there? Did they not give a shit?
Right.
Like, what's going on with that?
I don't honestly think they cared, because at that time, they did, horrible. In their eyes, they did their job to give that family the child that they were looking for. They couldn't help that she didn't specify other potential fathers. They just gave it like basic information, and she lied to them obviously about not only myself but who the potential fathers could have been.
Yeah.
So yeah, they really had no clue. I still talk to them to this day. We'll send messages back and forth on Messenger, Facebook Messenger. The good thing about the story for them is November of 2020, they wound up receiving a phone call from the same adoption agency, because they wouldn't give them their money back. They said they'd do it pro bono or whatever to get them another child.
Oh my God.
And November 2020, they wound up getting another baby. I think the mother, I'm trying to think. I think they said that they were told the mother was drugged and raped at a party, but the mother didn't want to give up the child or have an abortion or anything. Like, she went through and just put the child up for adoption. And so at that point, when that came around, they were still nervous about maybe a potential father coming through and claiming that
for sure.
And it wound up not being the case. And happy to say that they still have the child. They had the full out custody of him and no issues. So we send pictures back and forth to each other of the kids. And um, last year, when we were able to travel after the pandemic, we went. We kind of do like a yearly thing now where we go to Houston for their Renaissance Festival. They do at the end of like October and November. They do like this big Renaissance Festival. So we go out there and we met with them and got to eat lunch together and spend some time, because I still feel like they're part of his life. Whether they were there for 4 months, so to me they're family. That's like I told them, they're family. At first, when we were in the mediation, they were kind of weary about keeping in contact. And like I told them, I was like, I want y'all to still be a part of his life. That's up to you. I can understand the emotional side of it, but you just let me know. And throughout that process, obviously them grieving, I would talk to them, try to ease it in, and it would just be, before you knew it, was all blown out, just conversations and pictures, just meeting each other for lunch when we're in the Houston area. So it started off bad, but still, even though it's a bad story, it has a good outcome for not only myself, but also the adopted family in this process, that crazy process that we had.
No, I think that's amazing, because that, that's just more people in his life for the future, which, it might be weird to tell him, but just people that he knows that loved him, and he's going to know that his dad fought for him.
Right.
See, I think that's pretty
Exactly.
dope that his dad fought for him and
That-
was
yeah.
still like, it'll show how you are as a person to be like, I fought for you. This family was going to, be your family, but look, they're still your family, and I'm your dad.
Right.
Like, I just think that's so cool. Like, cause there's not many stories like that. And I just think that shows what
No.
kind of a person you are, which is amazing.
Right.
Like, really, which
Thank
is
you.
so cool.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, they were great people, super nice people. I couldn't have asked for a better adopted family for him to be with for the 4 months, because I could tell they took care of him. He was super happy in all the pictures, and even their family, you could tell that they loved him. And we, like I said, they shared more pictures. I think a few days after I brought him home, she wound up sending me on Facebook Messenger like 90 something pictures from the time frame where they were in the hospital, because they were in the delivery room when he was born.
Yeah.
They sent me pictures of that all the way up to the 4-month mark. And so after that, I wound up, every month I would send, because they sent the little numbers of the month with some of his stuff, some of the Christmas pictures and Christmas cards that they had with him. They put it all in like a care package, because they gave me a care package because they knew I wasn't really prepared to come home with him. So like that night after mediation, I had to run to Walmart and get a car seat so I could bring him home. And so yeah, they did like a little care package. It had his formula, some of his stuff. Now thinking back about it, she sent like a little, I'd almost say a checklist, but a little small letter let me know what he liked. He liked for, I think it was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. He liked being sung that before bed, things like that. So I tried to stay within her, notes to kind of make it to where it was easier for him to adapt and still feel that same love that, that they gave him.
That's awesome. No, that's so cool. And I love that you took it in. Like, you weren't so, because I mean, you could have been the other way. Like, hell no, I don't want to do that. But you just
right.
You took it in to do the best for your son, which I love. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. And like I said, it was what was best for him. He's coming, I'm sure it was a total 360 coming from one state to another and being with one family and going to another family. And me being the age that I am, I couldn't even imagine something like that. This is stuff that, honestly, you probably watch on Lifetime or, something that you think was impossible to happen. But it's true. It really does happen. Apparently, it happens a lot more than we know, but it really does happen a lot.
Because people aren't willing to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no. Well, I was just gonna say, I think that's the biggest reason why when the topic kind of came up, when we were all recording another episode afterwards, we were all talking, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I know somebody who kind of has a story. He needs to tell it. Let me reach out to him and see if he'd be willing," because it does happen. We don't hear about it. We don't see about it. We don't hear enough about birth dads. Melanie and I have talked about this multiple times, is that birth dads, bio dads do not get talked about as much as they should. And we don't know about these stories. We don't know about the things that a lot of bio dads go through, that exactly like you went through, where they may know about it and they may say, okay, yes, adoption is the right answer, I do this. Or on the flip side, they're not told at all. And they have no idea. And then when they find out, they don't know what to do. If they ever find out, they have no idea what to do. And so you telling your story, huge thank you, because you're helping other people understand what to do and how to go about it, how to handle it. Sorry, go ahead, Melina. Sorry, I went on tangent again.
No, you're good. No, what I was just gonna kind of reiterate that is just I love that it was shared, because like he said, there's probably so many people out there that can relate and maybe didn't have an outcome like him, but you know what I mean? Like maybe I don't know. I just wish, I like it when people speak up with what we think is like a non-common story, because it's actually probably more common than we think. People just don't share it because one, they're not asked, or two, they just don't want to. Because I get it. There's a lot of emotion. I mean, he went through 4 months of hell to try and, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, exactly. And then there may be somebody out there that may, if they do ask and then say they go into, and like say Donald's explaining his story, they just look at him and go, really? You know, like we get all the time on Instagram and social media and everything, they'll have some kind of negative thing to say to tear you down and make you feel like you're ridiculous for doing what you did, fighting for your child like you wanted to, like you felt was the right thing to do. I guarantee you there's some Yahoo out there who would say, you really should have left him with the family that was going to adopt him, which makes me want to thump him in the forehead, because it's not their place to say that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the reason why a lot of people don't share their stories. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. And it was cool to learn all the different steps, because I don't think people go into the legal part of it a lot. And so it was just how much work really had to be done. It's not just, a simple, it's paper after paper, court date after court date, just fight until you can, hopefully get where you want to be.
Right. It wasn't just a simple thing of going on Maury and proving that you are the father. It's
it wasn't that. No.
It's not that simple. It's not that simple.
But it was the same DNA center that they use is the same one I used. So when I got that, I was hoping Maury would pop out of somewhere and give me the results himself. That would have been great, but yeah, it was never like that.
That's crazy.
Okay, so I actually have a different question for you, and I was debating on whether or not to ask you, but you did when I explained that we may have follow-up questions. You said we could ask whatever you want. So I do want to ask this, because I'm trying to. I guess I'm trying to I don't know why I'm trying to wrap my head around where her head was at. I don't know why, because I don't want to be as nuts as that, but. You mentioned that 2 days before y'all split, she reached out to the adoption agency. You found out about this after the fact.
Yes. Way after, yes.
Way after. So a few days before, she contacts the adoption agency. You are aware that she was pregnant at the time, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all had talked about that and everything. And then a few days later, y'all have falling out.
An argument.
Just an argument. I almost feel like she started it, but that's my own opinion. I'm going to keep to myself. I feel like she picked the fight. I feel like she
did. And I'll tell you what she did. She tried to make it seem like, because I'm trying to remember what it was. It's what it was. I called her out on something. So she told me, I can't remember what she told me, but whatever it was, I called her out on it. And then all of a sudden she said that, and I'll never forget this because it blew my mind. I was at my best friend's house, and I looked at him. I was like, man, can you believe this crap? So she told me that whatever I called her out on, I can't remember what it was. now, but I just remember the results. She said that I made her so mad that she blacked out and she wasn't feeling good. So she drove herself after she came to. Her son couldn't call 911 or anything like that. She woke up and drove herself to the hospital because she blacked out. And that's the reason why we had to split or whatever it was. And I was like, cool. That doesn't sound right to me, but we'll go with it. That's the only reason why I remember that, because it was nuts.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's not right.
So
I'm
can
just-
I ask, how old are you, Donald?
I'm 36.
Okay. So it's not, I mean, like, you're not like a young,
It's like
dad
yeah,
either.
I was about
it's
to say, like, I'm
you
not,
know,
I'm not trying
like,
to be mean, but like, you're not a kid. Like, you're
Nah,
you're
I'm
a whole
old.
adult. You're a
Right.
whole adult. You're a whole adult that you have joint custody of your oldest. You could
Right.
easily, if she did not, I mean, because clearly she had zero interest in being a mom.
Right.
Which, I mean, she easily could have just said, I don't want any rights here, take your son.
Exactly. And it'd been done, clean cut. We wouldn't have talked about it. Nothing would have been said of it. But instead, we had to go through this process, and it wound up coming out.
So even after y'all broke up, I'm like really been out of shape about this girl now, because I did not know all of this stuff when he first told me this story.
so
Like
funny.
I was all like, oh my God, you fought for your son. That's amazing. Now I'm a little bit out of shape about this girl, because it's the second time I'm hearing this story. Been out of shape about this girl because she makes women look bad, and I don't like that.
Yes.
I don't
Right.
like
yeah.
I don't like when women make women look bad. I do not like
Well,
that. So I'm a little bit
Not
out of
only
shape
that,
about it.
but like birth moms,
Right.
she makes birth
Birth-
moms
she
look
makes- she
shitty,
does
and
make
not
birth
all birth
moms-
moms are like that, you know.
Absolutely
Anyway, sorry,
not.
go on.
Absolutely not. No, I agree with you. They are not all like that. And it really makes me mad, like been out of shape a lot. And we'll touch on that in a second as to why I'm super been out of shape about it. But even after y'all broke up and she's still pregnant, she still took your money for maternity clothes, doctor's visits,
Right.
all of that.
See,
Okay.
yeah. So that was probably around April. So around mid-May is when she stopped kind of asking for stuff. And by that time, she was obviously already talked to the adoption agency, things like that. So
Mhm.
she didn't need it anymore. Like, I had little to no information about what was going on, how she was feeling. She's like, everything's okay. That's the only text message I would get.
Mhm.
Finally, instead of texting her every day, I would just text her like every Wednesday and see how things were with the same answer. Just everything's fine. Everything's good. He's good. He's fine. I'd ask her if she need anything. Nope, I'm good. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to still help you, but I just want you to know that. And it just, after that, it was never accepting. And I think that was where I first started realizing, like, something's not fully right. Usually
Right.
somebody in this position would be like, yeah, sure, I need this, I need that. Could you do this for me? I got a doctor's visit come up. Can you pay for this? And
Especially considering how readily she was like, hey, I need this. Hey, I need this.
Right,
Hey, I need
right,
this. And then all of
exactly.
a sudden it stops.
nothing.
And I'm also, I hate to assume things, but I'm also assuming this was a privatized adoption to where it was like,
Yes.
okay, that makes a little more sense now. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It was private to where like nothing was really said and done. It was just kind of, all right, here you go. No one will know.
Okay, so this is the reason why this hits me so hard and why I'm really been out of shape about her is because, and then I'm probably gonna get some feedback about this from some people, but that's fine. There were people, and I'll just leave it at this. There were people that accused my bio mom of doing that, and that's not what she did.
Mhm.
Like what your son's birth mother did, my bio mom was accused of doing that. And that's not what happened. Like I have it in his handwriting that he knew about me, obviously, and that he agreed to put me up for adoption. He just wasn't comfortable signing the paperwork, but he was all for the adoption. So that was all in his writing. So it really bends me out of shape that there are women out there that actually do this.
Well, and see, for me on the flip side, it makes me question, like, granted, my bio mom speaks Spanish, but it makes me question if it's similar to Donald's story, because she
Yeah.
tells me he knows about me, but then me and the rest of my siblings that are still
Mhm.
down there with her, they don't know jack freaking shit about any of their dads. Granted, we think we
Right.
have different dads, but it's like, is she telling me that to be like, oh yeah, your dad knows about you, but really he has no effing clue about me? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and that's a
She-
disservice to the dad.
Exactly.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
a disservice. It's a disservice to the dad to not tell them. It's also a disservice to the dad to where when they're not alive to say, yes, I did know, to rewrite history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Right.
bio dads, like, I'm just gonna say it. Birth dads, bio dads deserve better.
Agreed. I agree
They
100%.
deserve better. They deserve better.
Agreed. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's
Wow.
why I'm super grateful you came on and spoke to us, because it's rare.
Seriously.
And just to see, like, I don't know, like it was, because like you said, it started out as a sad story, but it's honestly blossomed into something so
Mhm.
beautiful. You have your son, and like I said, the raddest thing is that you're still in contact with that family. Like, I think that's so incredibly
Right.
That is-
dope. Like, because
That is the
a lot of
coolest
people
part to
don't
me.
do that. You know what I mean?
No, they do not.
Right. Yeah.
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 So I love that.
And like I said, to me, they were down to earth people. I understood that that's something they always wanted. They thought they had it, and then it got ripped away from them. And
Right.
Right.
that would be selfish of me, I guess, in a way, not to at least allow them to have some type of participation in his life, things like that. Whether it is when we go to Houston and visit family, we bring them along and be a part of it, or just pictures back and forth, whatever it may be. And we get along great, no hard feelings. It wound up working out great for both of us.
Yeah.
So that was the most important thing, because when she told me that they were getting another child, I was ecstatic for him. It was like,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
having that feeling all
Absolutely.
over.
See, and that right there is going to shut down a lot of fears that we had
Mhm.
adoptive parents ask us, is like, well, their parents are going to come back and take them, which, okay, yeah, I get that. Like with this situation,
Right.
rightfully so. But look, like he still stayed in contact and he still wants the best for these people. He's not like, damn y'all to hell. He's just like, I want the
Right.
best for you.
Exactly.
I'm
Well,
so happy
and
that,
it just goes to prove the point that we constantly make. Why would you not want more people around your
Right.
child to love them? Why would you not want that? And this just proves it. Like
Right.
it just proves all of it. Like yes, there are fears, but like you said, everything works out. If you choose joy and you choose to find the happiness, it may suck at first,
right.
but it's going to end up working out. It's going to be fantastic for everybody involved. Somehow, some way, it
Right.
will work out.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
For sure. Anything
was
else?
a-
I've just loved it. Woo! Like seriously,
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I know it's probably getting.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Are you guys both a couple hours ahead? Are you a couple hours? How many? Like I
No,
know.
he's,
I'm the same.
Yeah, he's central
Yeah.
with me.
So you guys are 9:30. Get in there. It's only 8:30 here.
Yeah, I don't have
So-
work tomorrow, so I'm good.
Cannot say the same. I cannot say the same. But it's fine. It's fine.
Do you
This
have
is-
any
this
other
is definitely worth
questions
it.
for him? Not that I can think of. Do you-
Not
I was just
that
gonna-
honestly. I think I asked everything. I'm just gonna go reiterate. Like Donald, I've always known you're a great guy. Like, obviously we go back. Like, I know you're a great guy. This just solidified that your strength of character is so much stronger than what I originally thought it was. Like, your story is incredible, and I really thank you for coming here and sharing it. And I hope you continue to share it, because this is life changing. Like,
Oh yeah, no. It's interesting when I have to do like today I registering for his little 3K program, and they were asking me like, you missed a spot. I was like, did I miss a spot? Where? And it was just like under mom contact. And I was like, no, I'm mom. I'm mom and dad.
Right.
So
And I think-
they just kind of look at me.
Yeah, it's just less common. And so I think when it
Mhm.
is, like, it's so cool. It needs to be highlighted more that, like, no,
Mhm.
dad can be there and dad can be both. Like, it's fine.
Absolutely.
Like, you see mom as
Absolutely.
both, but dad can be both.
but
And
dad can be both too.
I didn't know you before this, and just listening to your story, like I told you before, it shows the person that you are and your character. And I just think it's so amazing, because a lot of people that are going to listen to it aren't going to know who you are. I mean, maybe if you have some
Right.
loved ones listen to it, but they're going to be like, holy cow. And I think it's going to put a lot of people's hearts at
Mhm.
ease, and just know that there are some damn good people out there that are men.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that are dads that
Yeah.
want to step up.
We're
and,
not
like,
all yeah, I was gonna say we're not all bad. I mean, it just depends on a lot of like y'all said before. It's just some of the situations like they may not
Right.
know, so it
Right.
just blows right by them, or
Exactly.
Right,
things like that.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
Well, Donald, do you have any like last words or anything advice you would give anybody before we close this out?
yeah, I mean, I guess if as a male, if you have any doubts about something, just make sure you check it out and don't, like, if they're the potential mother of your child is being rude for no reason, I would definitely question that. Don't just be like, oh, okay, whatever, we'll blow it off. It's normal, I think it will wind up coming out that she had some bipolar issues and some other issues, mental issues that came out that was told to me, I guess necessarily by her, that she had these issues and that's why she wasn't in the right state of mind or whatever. But I don't know, that's in that position, and even in position now, it's kind of hard for me to believe that like you didn't know that you had these issues prior to. So I don't know if it's like just something to kind of stay in contact to find out about the child or my son or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, just the main thing is if you have any doubts at all, just do that paternity registry. I mean, that was probably the key thing that helped me throughout the whole process, because that allows you to find out the information maybe a slower way, or slowly, but it'll eventually tell you the information you need. That way you'll know what you need to do. But definitely, if you have doubts, I would do that. And that, someone you were with is pregnant by you or potentially pregnant by you. Definitely keep records, because that helped me too when we did the mediation of all the bank statements, things like that. Text messages, that helped out too. I still have those text messages from her pretty much the whole time. And not only that, but where her friends text me and her sister text me, I still have all those text messages to this day, just in case something may happen. And but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're good. We don't have to worry about nothing. And ultimately, it'll be his decision whether when he gets old enough, whether he wants anything to do with her or not. That's up to her or him. I won't make that decision other than right now for him.
Right.
Because right now it wouldn't be best for him to be confused like that.
Right. For sure.
That's fair. That's definitely fair.
Well,
this was a
Delancey. Good job for bringing on a freaking amazing guest. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, it was so dope. It was so good. So anything else you want to say, Delancey, or do you want me to close this out?
I mean, I don't know, man. This was a great episode. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. So yeah, I'm gonna let you close this out though, because like I feel like you do that the best. I'm just really better at commentary.
No, whatever. You're so good. Anyway, okay. Well, you guys, this episode was so good. I honestly would suggest go back and listen to it again, because I mean, I always listen to them when we launch them, but there's so much to learn from this. And especially you adoptive parents that listen to us, like listen and learn that not all the time bio parents are trying to do it maliciously to get their babies back. Sometimes they don't even know what the hell's going on. So seriously though, like, thank you, Donald, for coming on and sharing your story. And we so appreciate it, like, so much. And so, yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right.